Hey, I'm Tshaka Armstrong. Thank you for joining me today on reviews.org. This is not ad sponsored, but my name is Tshaka, which begins with a T. And the first time I walked into a T-Mobile, I had to have one of their shirts because it has a big T on it. So I asked about those shirts and they didn't have them for sale at that time, but then T-Mobile made their own merch store where they actually have some really cool jackets and t-shirts and things like that. So here we are. I have a couple of these T-Mobile t-shirts, which are apropos for today's video because we're talking about T-Mobile's latest exclusive branded phone. Now, TCL made a big splash this year when they launched their own branded phones here in the US, the 10L and the 10 Pro, but those were both 4G handsets. They did have a 5G handset in the pipeline, but it wasn't slated for the US, or was it? T-Mobile recently released the REVVL 5G, a follow-up to their previous REVVL handsets, but this time with more Gs. So, what does TCL's 10 series phones and T-Mobile's new REVVL 5G have to do with each other? Yes, you guessed it. You're about to find out. Hey, if any of these reviews have helped you, if you learned anything, please consider hitting us with that thumbs up, hitting the subscribe, and hitting that notification bell so you'll be notified when we upload the latest content. According to XDA developers who looked at some filings of phones with certain organizations back in June, and I quote, "A new device was just added to the list of Google Play certified devices. The device has the name REVVL 5G with codename Seattle 5G and model name T970W. It's powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G, 6 gigabytes of RAM, has an FHD Plus display at 2340 by 1080 resolution, and runs Android 10. According to the Bluetooth SIG, T790Y is the model name for the TCL 10 5G. The Bluetooth SIG filing also says the design name of the T970W is Seattle GL. Thus, it's likely that the REVVL 5G is just a rebranded version of the TCL 10 5G for T-Mobile, end quote. And here we are. So, let's take a look at what you get with the REVVL 5G on the hardware side. The phone has a delightful heft to it. It almost feels flawless in hand to me if it weren't for the fact that the back is super slick. You're definitely going to want to put a grippy case on it. But that heft lends to it a feeling of durability and solid engineering for the body of the phone. Being on big magenta, naturally, the phone has this beautiful iridescent black to magenta smoky sheen to it on the back, and with a bright magenta power button on the side, which has the option to light up for notifications. Also on the back of the phone is a fingerprint scanner, which I found works quite well with almost no error. And we're going to get a triple camera system on the back as well. More on that in a bit. Right side of the phone, above that magenta power button, is a volume rocker. Top of the phone, you get a microphone and 3.5mm audio jack. On the left side of the phone, you get a SIM tray which supports expandable storage via micro SD. Bottom of the phone is where you'll find another microphone, USB-C port, and one of the speakers. Then we get to the front, the display. The display is FHD Plus at 6.5 inches and looks great. It's actually an improvement on the 10L, which I found to be a bit dark with Next Vision activated. So I tried viewing it with Next Vision turned off. And though the dynamic color range suffered, the increase in brightness was an acceptable trade-off. In this case, the REVVL 5G with Next Vision on had a brightness level that was definitely watchable and didn't seem to suffer as much from the issues I had with the previous model. One characteristic worth noting was color. Some of you like heavily color saturated images, while some of you like more natural images. Next Vision and The Witcher produced highly saturated colors, while Next Vision Off gave a more natural tone to skin and the show overall. Which also meant that with Next Vision on, my pal the turtle and his or her undersea friends also came vibrantly to life on this display. And by extension, you can be sure that all of your anime and cartoons will be fine. My only complaint with this beautiful HDR10 display is that it is glossy. So, reflections could be an issue in some environments if you're trying to watch something. Be ye forewarned. At the top of that 6.5-inch display is a 16 megapixel hole punch camera, which will get you some solid selfies. It's pretty sharp and color reproduction is lifelike, not highly saturated like some. Next to that hole punch is a speaker grill for your calls and for entertainment. Which brings me to the next selling point of this value-priced 5G handset, the sound. Listening to Urbance on YouTube, it was among the loudest I've tested, peaking at over 80 decibels. Listening to The Witcher, the perceived loudness, how loud it sounded to me, was lower than a couple handsets I've tested previously, but on par with others which have a front-firing speaker. This makes for a much more pleasant listening experience for your music and your movies and video content. I'm always going to be a fan of front-firing speakers, especially the kind that go in the earpiece grill and have some quality volume to them. You know what else has quality volume? The cells in the battery on this phone. Though it isn't wireless charging capable, it does have a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. And seeing as how I wasn't able to find a full spec list for this phone, but we know all the specs for the 10 5G, this phone is equipped with the same 18-watt fast charging and quick charge 3.0. And in the box, you don't get headphones or any of that type stuff, but you actually do get a really solid braided charge cable. And this is actually an impressive, it's pretty thick. So this feels like this is really gonna last a good amount of time. And much like the phone feels like it's built with a great heft, this charging cable is made of the same or cut of the same cloth, if you will. And you even get an 18-watt charger in the box. Last, let's look at the cameras and user experience. As I've said before, these days you're gonna get a pretty solid image out of cameras in good daylight, but it's indoors and under tough conditions where things can get a bit fuzzy. This indoor shot of my Infinity Gauntlet and Yoda, which was shot under less than ideal lighting, still looks fairly sharp with good color reproduction. I also exposed this phone's night mode to my Metro Stop test. It produced an image which was serviceable on bigger screens and would be just fine on our smartphone displays. As I always point out, the 2 points to look at in these photos are the amount of graininess in the sky and the sharpness of the palm fronds. Getting to some of the more technical specs, the phone houses 6 gigabytes of RAM, runs Android 10, and feels nice and peppy. Moving through menus, flipping through camera modes, it all feels fast enough, especially at $400 for a 5G phone. The UI does not feel like it gets in the way, as it's fairly close to stock Android without a lot of bloatware. Other than Next Vision, there aren't a ton of upgrades and add-ons, and this is a 5G phone, so we actually need to talk about that. This phone actually takes advantage of some of that new mid-band spectrum T-Mobile picked up when it acquired Sprint. And though you'll only find that part of the spectrum T-Mobile offers in select areas currently, you're going to have more luck with the sub-6 spectrum T-Mobile has already been operating prior to the merger, which this phone can also take advantage of. Where you can access that mid-band spectrum though, it is fast. I didn't get the chance to test the building penetration as thoroughly as I'd like, but I did find a tower about 9 minutes from my home. Let's check that out. Full disclosure, I'm about probably 100 yards from a cell tower. I'm about 100 yards from a 2.5 gigahertz cell tower. What I did is my contact at T-Mobile gave me their map of 2.5 gigahertz band or 2.5 gigahertz spectrum locations that have been deployed here in Los Angeles. I'm currently in Chatsworth, California. There we go. 300, 350, 400 megabits per second down, 495, 514. So 514 megabits per second down, or 541 megabits per second down. The test is still running. This is speedtest.net by Ookla, and that's 81 megabits per second down, or up rather. So 541 down, 81 up. So the final analysis, this is a lot of 5G phone for a really good price. If you get the special right now, it is literally a steal for a 5G phone, and you can get it for $200 when you add a new line. If you're in the market to upgrade and really want a 5G phone, and you're on T-Mobile or Metro by T-Mobile, or you're on the Sprint side of things and maybe gonna move over to a native T-Mobile account, you'd be hard pressed to find a better deal. And you should definitely put this atop your short list of 5G phones that you may be considering. And normally this is the part where I tell you to check out reviews.org. I'll get used to this someday. Boom. But since we're talking about a T-Mobile exclusive, you can still go to reviews.org and check out all the rate plans and phones and everything T-Mobile is offering, as we have that on the site as well. As usual, we don't take it lightly that you spent your time watching with us. I thank you kindly. I'm Tshaka Armstrong for reviews.org. See you in the next video.